So today I want to discuss with you guys Levolution. Now you may be thinking, well, the game's been out for quite some time now, we all know what Levolution is, we all know what Levolution does, but I want to ask you guys, do you genuinely think you'll be seeing Levolution again in any of the Battlefield 4 DLCs anytime soon? Because I'm starting to have serious doubts whether or not this is going to be a feature we see in the long run. Now of course, recently on Reddit we had some more information regarding the serious lack of Levolution in China Rising. Now of course, as soon as we all played this DLC, we all noticed practically straight away there was no Levolution in comparison to the other maps we'd seen in the base game. Now, as I've told you guys many times before, I got a chance to go down to the EA office in Guildford and play this DLC a few weeks before its release. Now, at this event, there were some DICE guys there, but not only developers, but guys who'd actually led the team when working on China Rising. And we'd spoke to these guys and we'd said, so what's the kind of Levolution we can expect to see in China Rising? And they'd said there's going to be some serious weather aspects, very similar to, of course, Paracel Storm. And we knew about the big bomber, so we assumed maybe the bomber might be to do with the Levolution, destroying whole sections of the map, bringing down buildings, collapsing certain structures. But of course, once the DLC was released, everyone was questioning, well, where is the Levolution? And we now know in hindsight, looking at the game files that were discovered by a player on Reddit, that there was meant to be some serious Levolution in China Rising that actually got taken out, we assume because of lack of time and problems with the game that was still trying to be resolved. But before we take a look at the Levolution aspect in future DLCs, I think we need to take a look at the base game itself. Now, running up to the release of Battlefield 4, we saw a lot of hype of one map in particular, Siege of Shanghai. The alpha took place on this map, the beta took place on this map, the multiplayer reveal took place on this map, we saw gameplay trailers all based around this map, and of course, the main aspect of all this was the Levolution, this huge multi-story skyscraper come toppling down and changing the whole way this map is played. Now, of course, Levolution itself was a huge marketing aspect for the release of Battlefield 4. We had Levolution trailers, we had interviews with developers solely discussing the Levolution aspect. So of course, this was a huge marketing aspect for the release of the game. So it's pretty obvious to see why Siege of Shanghai was picked as the map for the reveal of the game. The Levolution is not only one of the most aesthetically and visually pleasing, but also one of the largest in the game. So this is where I want to ask you guys a question, and I do genuinely want to hear your response in the comment section below. When you got your hands on Battlefield 4 and you got a chance to play all the other maps, did you think the other Levolutions were as impressive as Siege of Shanghai? Or maybe there were some maps that you thought, well, that Levolution could have had a bit more impact on the map, it could have looked a bit more impressive, it could have been a bit of a larger scale event, because my example of this is Lancang Dam. Now, whilst the dam crumbling and collapsing does look pretty impressive visually, on a Levolutionary scale, it has no real impact on the map. You continue playing the game on that map as you did before the Levolution took place. So the way Levolution was marketed isn't always the case. We were told Levolution is going to change up the way you play, it's going to have impact on the way that game is played out. But Lancang Dam is a great example of before or after the dam collapsed, it makes no real difference to how that map plays out. So this is something that can actually be applied to quite a few of the base maps in the game. Now, another discussion I always hear regarding Levolution is players saying they prefer a map before the Levolution takes place. Now, for me personally, a great example of this is Siege of Shanghai. I think this map is 10 times better when the tower is still standing. You've got a focal point, you've got a central area for players to meet, to fight over, and whichever team control that tower practically control the map. They can snipe down onto players below, anywhere in the map, and they can parachute to practically any other area of the map from that tower as well. But once the tower's gone, the map seems to slow down, it loses its central fighting area, and it just doesn't seem to be as fun. Now, another great example of this is Flood Zone. I personally always play Flood Zone on infantry only conquest and domination. Now, when someone breaks the levee and floods the map, of course with no vehicles or boats to move around, it really slows down the pace of the game. You can't flank around the enemy as quick, you can't move around the map or navigate as quick. So for those kind of infantry only games, the Levolution just hinders the way the map is played. But this doesn't mean I don't enjoy Levolution. I do think it's a really cool aspect to the game. Of course, it's pretty revolutionary. We've never seen a Levolution kind of aspect in online shooters before. It was only a few days ago I was playing Hainan Resort, moving through the hotel, clearing out the enemy team, when all of a sudden my screen started to shake, there was a low rumbling noise, I darted out the lobby just in time to see half the hotel collapse behind me, and that was pretty immersive. It made me feel like I was in a real war zone, and it made the game pretty exciting. So I do think in the right situation at the right time, Levolution can be a really great aspect and feature of the game. So this is where I worry about the future of Levolution, and I feel it could go one of two ways, both of which are on the opposite end of the spectrum to each other. The first, DICE feel the need to put Levolution into every single map because, of course, Levolution is the big selling point of Battlefield 4. Now, as I said, I like Levolution in the right place at the right time. I think DICE, when developing future maps, need to take a step back and question, is Levolution A, going to improve the way the map is played, and B, give the players a cool experience? If not, don't feel the need to include Levolution. I actually think having Levolution in only certain maps will stop the game from being kind of repetitive and being very easy to read and make it a little bit more exciting. Or at the opposite end of the spectrum, we're just going to see Levolution disappear completely. The game itself is only 3 or 4 months old, and already within that time, we've seen the first DLC released and Levolution just put to one side and not play a major role. Now, of course, we know this is because DICE had very little time to finish the DLC and not get it to the required level. But since then, we've also heard that DICE are now having to go back and fix the base game of Battlefield 4, so all DLCs are now on hold. But interestingly, they're still going to be released on schedule, so that basically means DLCs are now going to be rushed out to release on time, but have very little time spent on them. So if we couldn't see Levolution in China Rising, it's hard to see how we're going to see it in Dragon's Teeth, Naval Strike and Final Stand if they're going to be very, very limited to time for development. So I think it'd be a real shame not to see Levolution make a major comeback in future DLCs and play a critical role in the maps again as it does with the base game. Of course, Levolution is what makes Battlefield 4 Battlefield 4. It makes it stand out from not only Battlefield 3, but more importantly, other major FPS games on the market. But now I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Levolution? I know some of you guys love it, some of you guys may hate it, so I want to hear from you in the comments below. What are your thoughts on it in future DLCs? Have you got any cool ideas that you'd like to see implemented in any future maps that'd be pretty cool ideas for Levolution? If you have, leave all those thoughts and ideas in the comments below. And again, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like, it does help me out a lot. But in the meantime, guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.